Colgan, Creagh, Cullen, Key, Mádan, Meade, Murphy, O'Donnell, O'Shanahan, and Russell are surnames of some of the old Irish families that settled in the Canary Islands, and throughout time, their descendants spread into the greater population. The Canary Islands off the northwest coast of Africa are made up of 7 islands: La Palma, Hierro, Gomera, Tenerife, Gran Canaria, Fuerteventura, and Lanzarote. The original inhabitants of the Canary Islands were the Guanches, although each tribe had their own names. Evidence of them are found on all of the 7 islands through their mummified remains and archaeological items. There were 7 different individual cultures with no apparent connection between those from each of the other islands. The Guanches are said to have originally come to the Canary Islands from North Africa around 1000 BC and share ancestral DNA connections with modern Berbers. It's suggested that these people were visited by the Phoenicians and later by the Romans. The Romans were the first to document the islands and its people. Now, the Romans wrote that the islands had many dogs, and that's where the name Canary comes from, as in canines, dogs. Sometime after 476 AD, after the fall of Rome, the Canary Islands were forgotten by the outside world. In the 14th century, the islands were rediscovered by Europeans, and initially by a Genovese who was sponsored by the Portuguese. Other Europeans soon followed, such as the Castilians, the Spanish. In 1402, Normans began the conquest of the islands with permission from the Spanish Castilian crown. Eventually, the Portuguese and Castilians became involved in capturing the island. The Guanche population fought against the Europeans for 100 years until the 7 Canary Islands were conquered. So the Guanches dwindled in numbers as many died in battle, and the rest were eventually assimilated into the European population. Though it differs on an individual level, on average, Canary Islanders today still carry Guanche DNA, with the greater part of their genetic ethnicity being Iberian as well as from other parts of Europe, and sub-Saharan African as well in smaller amounts. In part, this is due to the island being a port between Europe, the Americas, Africa throughout the centuries. Let's take a look at how early on the Irish came to peninsular Spain. So this is from the International Conference, the Irish Communities in Spain, and the Cortes de Cádiz, Courts of Cadiz. The presence of an important Irish community in Spain dates back to the middle decades of the 16th century when Philip II, 1556 to 1598, began to welcome Irish Catholic exiles to his kingdoms. The first wave of immigrants came to occupy influential positions in both the church and the royal armies. A new era in relations between Spain and Ireland began in the early 17th century. At this point, Philip III, 1598 to 1621, had the opportunity to incorporate the island into the monarchy, as the majority of the Irish nobles proffered their support for him and recognized him as King of Ireland. The king duly dispatched an expeditionary force of 4,000 troops to the south of Ireland, leading to the famous Battle of Kinsale of 1602, in which the Catholic armies were defeated by the English force. This reverse did not reduce links between Spain and Ireland. On the contrary, Irish immigrant communities in Iberia dramatically increased in size and significance as the Habsburg government welcomed Irish nobles who, like true Spaniards, had pledged themselves as vassals or subjects of the king. Consequently, a large number of exiled nobles were awarded membership of the Spanish military orders. Some were even invested with noble titles. Furthermore, the government sponsored the creation of Irish colleges in Spain and even established military regiments that were specifically Irish in origin. Likewise, we have this repeated here on Wikipedia, just for the sake of mentioning a couple of places to look, although there's plenty. The first diplomatic contact between the Irish and Spanish nobility happened in April 1529, when the Spanish ambassador Don González Fernández visited Ireland and met with the 10th Earl of Desmond. The agreement, known as the Treaty of Dingle, gave a formal legal and constitutional foundation to the rights of citizenship and other privileges that Irish exiles and immigrants enjoyed in Habsburg Spain, Habsburg Austria, and Habsburg Netherlands from the 16th to the 20th centuries. In 1601, Spain supported Irish rebels fighting against England during the 9 Years' War, and especially during the Siege of Kinsale, At the time, the Catholics of Ireland saw Spain as a potential liberator of their country from Protestant England, and in 1595, Hugh O'Neill offered the crown of Ireland to Philip II of Spain. Philip refused the offer, having already been the titular King of Ireland. As Catholics, the Canary Islands welcomed Irish people. In the 1720s, the Irish merchant James Diego O'Shanahan, a native of Limerick County and living in Waterford, arrived in Las Palmas. As a merchant, he became wealthy, though he died without heirs. His nephew, also named Diego O'Shanahan, continued his enterprise. His nephew Diego became an alderman of Gran Canaria, granted to him by royal order of the King of Spain. Diego likewise died without heirs in 1760, and it would be through his nephew, Baltasar O'Shanahan, that the family surname would multiply in the islands. In 1883, the Colgan family set up a hotel in Tenerife, the Hotel Marquesa, a first-class establishment in the Canary Islands. This is an interesting blog, a Convocation of Colgans. Let's take a look. I've just come back from a long weekend in Dublin, having been invited to attend International Colgan Day. Yes, indeed, it was the first ever gathering of Colgans, as far as we know, organized by a Colgan family expert, John Colgan, and hosted by the owners of the Lucan Spa Hotel, the splendid Mr. Frank Colgan and family. Now, when I was a young lad growing up in Cornwall, I didn't know any Colgans other than my immediate family of mom, dad, brothers, sis, and Andy, granddad, Ted, and Nana Marjorie. That was it. We aren't a big family. There were no Colgan cousins, no Colgans in the phone book, even we ex-directory due to dad being a cop. And the only other Colgan I ever saw was a sound engineer called Michael Colgan, who occasionally popped up in the credits of things like the Mission Impossible TV series and films, and the film Saturday Night Fever, and Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia. The very fact I remember those credits is a testament to the impact they had on me. It was very, very unusual to come across a Colgan that wasn't living in my house. So that's a very interesting thing. Let's look at what the blog mentions in relation to the Canary Islands and this family name. I also discovered that there's a Canarian branch of the Colgans based in Tenerife. In the late 17th century, John Colgan White, followed the lead of many Irishmen looking for new horizons and business opportunities and ended up in the Canary Islands as they were well positioned for the shipping trade routes. He soon became a major player in Puerto de la Cruz, Tenerife. 2 streets are named after him and sired a new dynasty. This is him. So here's a photo of John Colgan White. 8 generations later, Carlos Colgan Soriano had researched and published a huge book on the subject. There's also a link between the Canarian Colgans and Agatha Christie, too. You can read about it on Carlos's blog, and he does link to it. This is the book, Carlos Colgan Soriano. So here's another blog with information about Agatha Christie and her visit to Tenerife, and that goes into detail. But we'll move forward. Colgan, a name that speaks volumes in Tenerife and Ireland. The packed hall of the Presidencia del Gobierno in Santa Cruz was a fitting reflection of Irish integration into Tenerife life. The 200 seats were soon snapped up, and it was standing room only, as several generations of interrelated Canarian and Irish families gathered for the launch of Los Colgan de Irlanda y Tenerife. This epic work is not just a family story spanning 8 generations of the Colgans, but also a journey through the economic and political growth of Tenerife. For Carlos Colgan Soriano, it has been a labor of love tracing his family tree back to Waterford in 1684, when Bernardo Colgan followed the lead of many fellow citizens in seeking new horizons and business opportunities. The Canary Islands were well positioned for the shipping trade routes, and Bernardo soon made headway as a trader in Puerto de la Cruz. A new dynasty was about to unfold. Bernardo also added a new surname, Valois, that was to feature down the family line, and he grew so fond of Puerto de la Cruz that he donated a Baroque altarpiece of a Sacred Heart to the church Iglesia de la Peña de Francia, still a popular tourist attraction just behind the seafront. Many Irish settlers chose Puerto de la Cruz and nearby La Ortava, where John Colgan Blanco was born. He soon built on the family's commercial success, and Tenerife cochineal and wine became profitable exports to much of the Western world, including the UK. All the business documentation and family records have been tirelessly trawled to pull together this 625-page book. Sebastian Krieg from Limerick, Ireland, was a member of the Irish nobles of Salamanca, lieutenant colonel of the Royal Corps of Engineers in Spain, and director of Royal Tobacco Factory of Seville, with descendants in the Canary Islands. 16th century English-Spanish rivalry in La Florida by Mr. Wright. Here we have Sebastian Krieg, a captain in the 3rd Cuban Battalion, was one of the numerous Irishmen in the service of the King of Spain during the last few years of the 18th century. He was commander of the post of San Vicente Ferrer on the St. Johns River from 1790 to 1792. Tomás Cullen Macer appears at La Palma. His surname was also written as Colon on some documents. He was born in Dublin in 1719 and married Margarita Day and Mendoza on the island. There were other relatives among nephews and great-nephews by marriage in Puerto de la Cruz. In Gran Canaria, it was General D. Santiago Cullen y Verdugo that propagated the surname. Here we have James Diego O'Shanahan, birth date October 6, 1699, birthplace County Limerick, Ireland, and his death was on October 31st, 1735, age 36, at Las Palmas de Gran Canaria in the Canary Islands. For the O'Donnell surname, we have Leopoldo O'Donnell, Duke of Tetuan, born 1809 to 1867, was a Spanish soldier, politician who played a prominent role in the success of Spanish military insurrections of 1843 and 1854, and headed the Spanish government 3 times between 1856 and 1866. Though he lacked a coherent political program, he was a staunch supporter of Queen Isabella II, who reigned from 1833 to 1868. Queen Isabella was the Queen of Spain. Santiago Key y Muñoz was born in Alcalá de los Vinos in July 1772, a law graduate and doctor of Laguna and Seville, a priest and professor of ecclesiastical history in Seville. His sister Tomasa married into the Montemayor family. The Key family was originally from Ireland, the city of Kilkenny, county of Donegal. It's not known that the village exists. It's thought that it's Letterkenny, province of Ulster. Don Juan Diego Meade y Saul, of noble background in Ireland, married in Santa Cruz on November 8, 1783, with Isabel Power de Strickland. They had 2 children. One of them was Doña María del Carmen Meade y Power, baptized on February 14, 1787 in Santa Cruz de Tenerife. And she married on September 20th, 1801 with Don Patricio Murphy y Meade, her first cousin, who was baptized on July 2nd in the parish of La Concepción de Santa Cruz. His younger brother was Don Juan Cesario Murphy, deputy of courts of the Canary Islands, both of them sons of Don Patricio Murphy and Kelly of Dublin, and Doña Juana Meade y Saul, sister of the aforementioned Don Juan Diego Meade, nobleman of the Canary Islands. This topic is of interest to me as I have Canary Island ancestors, and between my maternal grandmother, aunt, and I, we all share some Irish and Scottish DNA results consistently through each DNA update through the years. We also share cousin matches with people that have some of these surnames that we've looked at, though we've yet to connect them to our family tree. Of course, we are overwhelmingly Iberian. I also carry this ethnicity in certain quantities on both my paternal and maternal sides. Maybe the biggest lesson learned is that sooner or later we're all connected by hook or crook in the greater picture of things. But also the question is, how do we connect personally in the context of family history? There's much more we could dig deeper into. This has been a general review, but you get the picture. Thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you next time.